All right, welcome back. This is Riley Davison, and you are listening to Bravo Zulu Radio. Again, Bravo Zulu is all about a job well done, and we are listening tonight to two genuine heroes. And so, Mr. Lanny McIver and Mr. Mike McIver, I'm just so grateful that you are in the studio today. So, go ahead, pick it up where when you left off.
Well, I was talking to my father about his early childhood in San Antonio, growing up in Alamo Heights, mainly off Blue Bonnet, which is right down the street from his favorite place, the police station, on Broadway. But he told me a story. He just said, Michael, you wouldn't recognize San Antonio back then, and the McNay Institute is where he used to go camp. And
we used to go over there and camp, and we trap for rabbits and stuff like that. And then there used to be the Woodman of the World Hospital, and that was a pretty big, I think it was like 300 acres. And we used to go camping in there, and we even did hunting in there, hunting for rabbits and squirrels and stuff.
And fish. Yeah, catching that pond.
Yeah, we fished Miss McNay's goldfish tank.
Are you serious? Oh, wow. That takes us back, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've heard that one. I was there.
Oh, they're allowed to come for you now. They were trying to figure out where all those goldfish went. So I have them in the studio. You can come now. They are in the studio.
It reminds me of a young Steve McQueen in his days,
All right. So after that, then I didn't get the chance to spend much time in Alamo Heights. We weren't necessarily welcome there, because about the only time that they let me in Alamo Heights was when I went underground, when we went through the cave over there off of Cave Lane.
Oh yeah, we explored Cave Lane from one end to the other.
Mm-hmm.
The city tried to close it up several times.
Yes.
In fact, they even dumped trash in it and everything,
Right.
but we just dig through the trash, take our little carbide lamps and flashlights, and go in Robber's Cave.
That was the
The
name.
rumor was that there was another entrance where TMI used to be,
Really?
and that the cave was connected.
Wow. That would make it, because I've always heard from Cave Lane, it goes all the way underneath the Alamo.
Yes,
so
that was the stories we used to.
We didn't go that far. But
Yeah, we went all the way under Handy Andy. Actually, we went as far as our fishing line would take us before we ran out of line and had to turn back.
Well, that's pretty smart. We were marking on the wall. So probably later on, the people thought, hey, there used to be Neanderthals down there.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Were you there at the time that John Vick got stuck?
I was. Were you there?
I was.
The panic attack?
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
Either if I wasn't, I remember the story. But since you brought that up, yeah, he was probably one of the bravest guys we knew at the time.
I looked up to John.
Yeah, you did. But that tested your manhood. And I could understand the claustrophobia.
He was squealing like a baby. He was.
It's stuff. Well, if you remember, you drop about, let's say, 6 feet down, and then you had to crawl on your belly for 12 to 15 feet.
Oh yeah, and it was tight.
Yes,
and he's a big guy.
And we were naive. We didn't realize how dangerous it was, and how somebody could die.
Well, youth is wasted on youth is what Shakespeare said that.
I remember that. That was great.
All right, so then we go to. So you went to France as well?
Well, no. Let me.
Okay. All right.
This is switching over to his grandpa.
Oh, okay.
Who's start the A&M heritage, and his grandfather graduated in 1916 from Texas A&M.
Okay.
His father was the first student at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's okay. That I remember you telling me. So
yeah, he rode his horse from their farm where they lived, and spent the night on the campus before registration the next day.
And his name was what again?
John Archibald McIver.
Okay. The first student at
got there by
Texas
mistake.
A&M.
Got there a little day early, didn't realize it. So the story is he slept underneath the oak tree, and just by happen chance, he becomes the first student. Which we've heard this story, but not till social media did it actually come about, and seeing other people remind us of these stories. And it talks about his funeral and things of that sort. And so it kind of brought back a little bit of history, started following that, and then that's when I started looking more at his dad, who once again was a student at A&M, did very well, graduated in 1916, and this thing called the World War opens up. Immediately, I think he was down in Kingsville at the time, and he's a first lieutenant, second lieutenant, and what we call Camp Funston or Camp Bullis.
Right.
That was the start of what they call the 90-day wonders.
Right.
And so he spent his time there, and just looking at the history, once again, all the records were destroyed in the fire in 1973. So you just have to
take your word for it.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And looked up, on
where's that meter?
YouTube and everything else. You got the stuff, yeah. And going over to France in September 1917, understanding the U.S. was not prepared for this war in any way.
No.
Weaponry, training, nothing.
Yep.
The war's been going on in France with Germany and Russia and
trenches already dug.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, we probably spent only a year and a half there, but the U.S. forces weren't allowed to participate fully until closer to the spring of 1918.
Right.
I'm sorry to do the long run on this, but this kind of where it brings his dad in. His dad was part of the 1st Army Division. There was a 2nd Army Division. There's a Marine Division. I'm not a total historian, but hopefully that's accurate. So the 1st Division being the Big Red One. So when you think of those guys, he was part of the machine gun battalion. And the French and the British were adamant that we want your machine gunners and we want your infantry right away. Pershing didn't really want to do it, but I think there's some compromise. So his father commanded, this is where we're not quite sure, commanded a French company, a machine gun company, which was, the life expectancy of machine gunner is not very good. And that's when my dad tells me the horror stories of trench warfare that his father talked about.
He lost the thought that I was going to tell you about. When we were growing up, they were showing a movie at the Broadway Theater called
All Quiet on the Western Front.
I remember.
Yeah. And my dad finally agreed to go with my sister and I, but he couldn't sit through the whole thing. He had to leave. He said it brought back too many memories.
Yeah, tough times.
Oh yeah, I've heard some tremendous stories from that, and then just the bodies that were buried inside the inside the trenches, and then it would rain, and all of a sudden they would come out underneath.
Sure.
And, yeah.
They talked about training with the U.S. forces. They put them in the trenches early for training, but in a quiet area, but they were exposed to the rats and the lice. And I remember my dad telling me the story about when his dad got off the ship. The first thing he saw were the wicker caskets, and so that kind of brings some imagination to the scene. And not being able to walk, couldn't walk a mile without stepping on somebody or something.
Sure.
The good news is he survived it. I think he was participating in the Battle of Soissons, which was in spring of 19 with the German offensive. But the war was coming to close, and we know 6 months later the war ended, and my grandfather came home in 1918, fall, September, and served in the reserves and got out. And it's funny, I only have one strong recollection of my grandfather is when we used to hunt off 281, sitting in a nice ground blind, and I had an Oreo cookie, and I bit it, crunch. And he turned around and he goes, that was it. You had to be quiet. So I got a little bit from my dad. But
so when you say the war ended, but when those men came home, the war hadn't ended.
Never
psychologically.
No, I think back then, what was it? Shell shock is what they call it now. PTSD.
Right.
I've heard some people say, well, you get PTSD when you go to basic training. It just changes your mindset and things of that sort. And it's funny, there's a lot of good memories in the service, obviously. And those that had to do the ultimate sacrifice or had to participate in those things to protect those that needed it,
we all need it.
It's tough, yeah. And I feel sorry for the men and women that.
When you say the ultimate sacrifice, that's the end line of it.
Sure.
Just being in the military is a sacrifice by itself.
It is. Yeah. It's almost. I thought about this the other day. It's almost a selfish sacrifice, and like, what are you talking about that? It's hard to give yourself 100% to your family because you are obligated once you sign that line, and that's why I applaud anybody, whether you served in combat or whatever form you did, once you sign on that line, because now you don't know where you're going to go, what you're going to do, things of that sort. and you start to understand those things. And I had the fellow Brahma, Steve Sanchez. I didn't really realize it. I think it was his great uncle who perished on Iwo Jima. So it brings a true story to the whole thing.
Oh,
And
maybe Steve will come on the program.
Yeah, he's a character. He's a character.
Yeah, he is. I don't know if we can handle it, dude.
Yeah. And that was pretty much it as far as Member Mac and the stories that he talked about.
So one second though,
Yes.
when you talk about the toll, and it's not just on the people that join the military, it's the toll on the families.
Without a doubt.
And so in essence it carries over. It's the same type of a situation with the first responders.
Yes.
And when you look at the marriages and everything else, the toll it takes on the whole family.
It was part of my failure as a father and as a husband, without a doubt. My own failures. I'm not blaming the military, but it was tough. But there's those times you would never give them back. That was, I don't know what it was. I grew up as a kid loving Audie Murphy, and that's what I wanted to do. And
I started to mention him earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible. And
what they had to, in essence, so I'm not taking anything away from Audie Murphy, not anything,
Sure.
or the other gentleman from the First World War.
Yes, Sergeant York.
Yeah, Alan York. Yes, not taking anything away from either one of those.
Right.
But in essence, what ends up happening is there's this need to make it palatable by the public.
Yes.
And give them heroes, so to speak, and they were, no doubt, no taken away from them. But that's, in essence, that's a way to glorify it, so that what everybody else went through. It's a little bit more understandable.
I agree. It's a shame you have to glorify it, but it kind of makes it. It's another avenue to people gain understanding. And when you go deeper into something like Sergeant York, and you start understanding, why he was a conscientious objector, I understand. And it was kind of funny that I got a little more depth, and it was actually, in the movie they portray, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, but his actual persuasion was, I don't remember the major's name or the captain's name, and I have to think about that. And I think it's in the book of Ezekiel that if you're the watchman and you're responsible to watch over the encampment, and the enemy comes and you fail to notify the encampment, that blood is on you. So now as a soldier, he realized his duty as a soldier.
You're talking about York.
Yeah, Sergeant
Right.
York. That was his
And
persuasion.
they come, and at the end of the movie, they look at him and say, "Wait a minute, how did you capture all these? How did you kill all these men? Was it 21 or something like that right then?
Yes.
And I thought you were a conscientious objector." And he looked and he goes, those men were killing my friends.
Too much killing going on, exactly. And it was funny because when they actually went through his trail and heard his story and the story from the other soldiers, and looking at the different weapons he had to use, because he kept grabbing that weapon and that weapon, and they found the cartridges because they had to verify everything. And amazing story. And still to this day, I watch the end when him and Gracie cross that bridge, and I still cry. I get emotional right now.
Yeah.
But really, I just in talking to you, I just wanted this opportunity to talk about my dad and give him this opportunity and talk about his father and his grandfather and all the fun times in San Antonio, and it all seems to come around. I think the greatest thrill you have when you start talking to another soldier is you forget about the things you did in the Army, and then you forget about the memories. And he and I talking about, he's serving in Fort Ord in California, and I was stationed there. The smell of that bay, using the same rifle ranges that we fired on, that was kind of amazing. The sand and my dad's still a prankster. Someday he'll have to tell you the things he did. But
I was going to pull up a couple of the things because you gave me some head notice about some of what he did.
Well, I just asked him it wasn't as bad, but him and his friends were. What did you say? You took the heads off the fire hydrants?
Yeah, we got thrown in jail. Albert Earl was the chief of police in Alamo Heights. And they had a guy, it was a volunteer fire department, and they had a guy work there that he didn't like us. Because he was always like opening fire plugs and stuff like that.
Right.
And,
you just didn't have anything better to do, or that was the best thing to do, or?
Yeah, opportunity.
A crime of opportunity.
And the most famous ones when they let the monkeys out of the zoo. You know.
Oh, okay. So that's what I was looking
Yeah.
up earlier. I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it real quick. Yeah.
I don't know, you pulled that one off. When y'all brought the ropes in, tied them on the rail, threw the ropes over.
Oh, yeah, let the monkeys out.
So did they find them all? Hopefully.
I don't know.
So,
We took a real low profile after that. We didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
so I knew the former director of the zoo, but I'm not sure. I may have to make a call to the new director and find out what he had to say about that.
Well, I remember in the early '70s when we would go to San Antonio Zoo, come up to the San Antonio visit, they have what I remember called Monkey Island. And as soon as you walk in, there's this huge mountain structure with a big moat around it, full of goats and monkeys that you wouldn't believe. And I think that was part of their scheme at that time. But it
wasn't my idea.
It doesn't matter. You were an accomplice.
I participated in it.
Did you know a radio show here in San Antonio, a guy named Robert Sinclair?
I'm
Okay,
trying.
he was asking me
I
about
think
that.
they've still got a radio station here,
Uh-huh.
Sinclair Broadcasting.
Well, yeah, I'm certainly known of Sinclair Broadcasting.
Oh.
I can't say that.
That was his culprit.
No kidding. Oh,
that
wait
was
a
one of
minute.
your culprits.
So I'm definitely gonna have to make a call now.
Yeah.
Robert Sinclair is still very handsome today.
Oh yeah.
Was in love with his sister. That's another story. But
Yeah.
You were in love with Robert Sinclair's sister?
no, Robert was in love with my
Oh.
dad's sister.
To date my sister.
Uh-huh. All right, so we are now uncovering
Yes,
old
yes,
truths.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. MacGyver. So, what do you think was the greatest? What do you think the greatest gift that you received from the military that you gave to your family?
It's a hard question to answer, really. I tried to tell them not to do as I do, do as I say.
If there was one thing that I tried to do with my boys, it was this: please, I'm trying to help you avoid the pain that I went through. Please don't follow my trail.
I think, even to this day, I take one thing of pride in is my ability to shoot a rifle and hit a target, which I got from my father, when he got from his basic training, his dad. And another thing is, I always joke with my other friend that I used to have a discussion once a week, and we talk about don't miss movement. So my dad's always been a stickler about time and things of that sort, because I remember when you think about this, his best buddy, Bob Patterson, was notoriously late, 3 to 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking about that when I was driving up here, that we didn't have cell phones that day. We had no idea where you are and when you're coming in. And that was his thing, that he'd always be upset with me or our brothers were running late or something, or my mom.
Yeah.
So you said don't miss movement?
Don't miss movement.
Okay,
Yeah.
so explain that for me.
4 o'clock is 4 o'clock.
Okay.
In the military, you do not want to be late when they're trying to pull out.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha. Okay.
same thing with my father. It was usually going hunting.
Uh-huh.
So we wanted to leave at a certain time. Usually it was on Friday, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, get a little early from school, and
Right.
we drive 3.5 hours to the Garner Stake area and stay
Uh-huh.
out there a week.
Beautiful. Yeah.
But it's just, waiting for his friend to show up.
I had a Jeep
Uh-huh.
when he was growing up. And when he got a little bit older, he kept asking me, can I use
Different
the
story.
Jeep? And finally I said, yeah, you use it. Mistake.
Well, I did the same thing you did. What happened was he walks in, flipping the paper. What are you doing? I'm looking at buying a motorcycle. Why do you want to buy a motorcycle? Well, I need some transportation to school. So we had a brand new CJ7, perfect color maroon,
Right.
hard top, sitting in the driveway, only use it for hunting. And it's Michael, I'll agree, I'll take it to school. 2 conditions: don't take the top off and don't take it to the beach. Sure. And then I see my brother at the beach. How did you get Bob's Jeep? Well, and took the top off, got it stuck in the mud, had to leave it there for 3 days, destroyed the bumper. And then when we were at the beach, we actually folded the windshield down. I put my wallet up there, and my friends brought the windshield back up, and we crimped the metal. And it wasn't probably until 20 years later, you know,
He was
having a
asking
beer at the campsite, talking about the things that we did. And I told him about that, and he was like, I've always wondered, I couldn't figure out what happened there. So that was it. And soon that CJ7 was gone.
I was racing. Well, so I totaled my CJ5. Yeah. So and I know
How did you do that?
I took out a. I don't know if I really want to say this on the air, but I took out a. I was on my way to work, Burr Road. I was a detail manager for the Classic Car Wash, and I was late. And I caught a good green light. I was coming down off of Burr, and I looked up, and the guy was driving a KSET 12 news van, big old satellite dish on the top of the line, and I see these eyes because
You
it's
see them well.
biggest saucers, right? I put the Jeep up on 2 wheels, kid you not, and then but I knew I was about to die because I would have flipped, and right before I hit him, I brought the Jeep back down, smashed the whole front end, come running out, never been so scared in my whole life. Jerked the door open, and the guy's laying down on the side, and he just looked up at me. I was like, "You okay?" And I couldn't believe it, so I told him. So I'm sorry, KSET 12. I'm sorry.
Wow. It's a little scary with your dad, isn't it?
Oh man.
Has she heard these stories before?
No, it's well some yeah. So I don't know if she heard that one.
Yeah.
Um,
We a little crazy.
yeah. It was, and it is, and that's why I have gone out of my way to try and make sure that
Yes.
the boys. She's much more cautious. And we're talking about my daughter, who's a camera girl, and so she's much more cautious, and her sister is as well. I don't know if her sister's quite as cautious, but the boys, just kind of grew up like me, and they've got this. I'm not sure that I want to learn it the way you tell it, Dad. I want to learn it for myself. So
Sure.
they've still got some skin to lose off their backside.
Yeah, I think we all been fortunate. I know my father's health has been very good, pushing 88. His
That's
mind is
awesome.
still driving, try not to, but makes a little runs down Cave Lane, and there's a little HEB there. But
Still live in Alamo Heights,
right up the side, Northwood, basically across from Garner.
right?
Yeah, those are the old days. I don't know if you went to Garner or.
No, I went to Kruger. so-
Okay, all right, very good.
So, then we merged. Kruger and Garner merged at MacArthur.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And it's funny, I was just talking to a guy today that went to Alamo Heights, and I don't know if you remember in '79 when they beat us. That was a rough day.
Yep.
It was
Yeah, it was.
losing Alamo Heights. Maybe it was '78.
So when we came from Kruger, so half of Kruger went to Roosevelt, half of us went to Mac. So when we came into Mac, we were wearing our bell-bottom jeans, right? And you guys had your straight leg.
No, not me. Yeah. I remember your dad with the difficulties when Madison came about, right?
Right.
Because then that's when you rebelled and you said, "I'm not going to Madison." You know, and
That's
I
another
admired
story.
that. I really did. I remember that. I was like, man, that guy's sticking up for what he wanted.
Well,
to
I
do.
played. So my mom and still, military brat. Both of my folks were in the military. And loyalty. That's what I knew.
Sure.
And here I was playing ball for Mac, and Mom moves over to Madison. We were a block away, and I've got some stories about that. But anyway, yeah. So and I told her, I said, I'm not moving. I'm not going. I'm playing. I play ball for Mac. I'm not playing for Madison.
Yes.
So I ran away from home. I slept at the field house.
Yes.
and then the coaches found me and said, "What are you doing?" And so everybody got involved and said, no, you can't. You've got to have a reason. So then the only reason were if I took air conditioning or they gave me a couple of reasons to be able to go to Mac, and none of them worked.
Right.
And then they finally said, so this is a true story. So okay. So they finally said, well, the only way that you can go to Mac is if you have a doctor's note saying that it's in your best interest. Boom, I had it. So Mom takes me to Fort Sam. We go to the doctor. The doctor says, "What are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I want to play ball for Mac, and I'm not going to Madison." And he said, "Well, I have no idea what you're talking about, but go ahead, go up to the front, tell the girl what you want your note to say, pay $10 and leave." So I did. So I got to construct my own note. It's in writing. So it's in writing. So here I am with 16, 17. Right, and I'm signing it. I'm filling out as a doctor the doctor's note saying it's in Riley's best interest for his mental acuity and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
If he goes ahead and stays in MacArthur. And so the next year, the follow-on, it had to be renewed every year. So the next year I went in, and the doctor said, "Come, just go up front, pay the $10 to go." That's a true story. That's how I got to go to MacArthur.
Well, my mother's much like you because I remember we used to have to get our physicals. And I'm trying to remember in the early days, I remember at Mac, I think they would bring in doctors. I can't remember.
Yep.
but she would always sign
Turn
my
his face
physical
off.
for him. John D. McIver, and she goes, well, my uncle was a doctor, so she signed my forms for me. I guess they can't go to prison nowadays.
Well, hopefully the statute of limitations
Yes,
is passed,
yes.
so they can't bring it up against
But
us.
it talked about the loyalty. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
It does. It does. There's no way I was going to leave. Well, and I hate to do this, but
Yes.
in much the same way as the military, not to say football, rises to the level of the military, but that's I saw it as that kind of camaraderie.
It's that love of the brotherly love, and I probably didn't get that till much later in life, realizing what we had at MacArthur.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, that's because y'all won some games.
Well, no, honestly, I'll be real honest with you. The group ahead of us,
Mhm.
they did. And
Right.
when I was a senior, or actually a junior, you and I played JV together, so
Mhm.
you're a sophomore.
That's when you whooped up on me.
No, that's right. I heard some
I mean,
stories.
me and Lorenzo, we're on the scrub team. We're just
That's
scrub.
right, and I love being on the scrub team. I was just thinking about that yesterday. I wish they would taught us differently or coached us
Right,
different,
right.
but they just show
Coach
us.
Nody, are you listening?
Yeah, well, no, it's the fact that I just I think it was yesterday. I remember doing isolation. I was playing linebacker. I stepped up, hit the back, and took at the tackle, not knowing the next play that there was do the same thing in a crackback. I didn't know what a crackback was, and so I'm thinking I'm ready to make this next tackle, and I get hit in the ear hole.
Yeah.
There are certain things about whether to watch the pulling guard or not watch the pulling guard. When people talk about
Those lessons that you learn.
two high safeties and all that stuff, I don't remember that stuff in high school. I just remember it as scrubs,
Right,
and our task was prepare for the. That was like our biggest duty, right? To
Right.
be the best representation we can with the opposing force.
That's what we still try and do. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Those of us that really care about what we're doing, about the
Yes.
lives that we're living, that's what we still try and do.
That's right.
Go ahead and give your father a tribute.
Well, what the grateful man that he is, he's the kindness that he showed and the patience and the understanding. My dad was always able to reason. He wasn't hard-headed to us. Don't get me wrong, real hard-headed, but he was always wanted to be logical. And if you could talk to my father as one-on-one, and if there was an issue, you could reason it out. And that's something I've learned a lot later in life, but I know from Pop, and we don't call him Dad, he's Pop.
Oh.
And the old goat, he was the original goat.
Wait, hey, but now GOAT means something different. It's greatest of all time.
I Googled it, I couldn't find it, but I'm sorry.
Greatest of all
Yes,
time.
yes,
All
and
right.
he is.
Well,
he
with
is.
that, we're going to bring
Yes.
it to a close. Thank you for listening. And these are two genuine heroes here. I'm looking forward to hearing more stories. If you know a hero, bring it to me. And to the McIvers, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.